this video is going to look at interpreting chemical compounds. So looking at different compounds and how we can write the symbols and we can figure out the difference between elements and compounds. So in our daily lives, chemicals are all around us. So some examples of chemicals include water, air, ink, hair dye, and bleach. The chemicals we use on a daily basis are made up of elements or compounds. And the big idea for this unit, the Atoms and Elements unit, is that chemistry affects and explains events and experiences of everyday life. This is one perfect example of explaining, well, what are those chemicals made up of in our daily lives. You have to understand elements and compounds in order to understand what our chemicals are made up of, what chemicals even are, and how we can safely use them. Earlier in this unit, we looked at pure substances and categorizing matter into pure substances or mixtures. Well, we're going to review this. So pure substances can either be elements, and those are found on the periodic table, or compounds. So elements are pure substances that are made up of one type of atom. So those are things like oxygen, things like iron, things like hydrogen, helium. All of those are found on the periodic table of elements. Compounds are also pure substances, but they're made up of two or more elements. So, those are things like H2O, or water, NaCl, NaCl, which is salt. So again, compounds are made up of two or more elements, and you can see there's one element here, Na, and Cl is another one. In H2O, H and O are the two elements that make up that compound. There are two major types of compounds that we're going to look at. The first one is something called an ionic compound, and the second one is a molecular compound. So this video is just a very brief introduction. At grade 9, we just have to have a little bit of an introduction. As you hit grade 10, you're going to understand more, and you're going to explore compounds further and understand more how they develop. So again, it's just a brief overview of these two types of compounds. So the first type, ionic compounds, are pure substances, right? Because they are compounds. They're made up of two or more elements. And they are usually made up of one metal and one non-metal element. So what happens is when these compounds are created, they share similar properties. So they will have a high melting point, I spelled melting point wrong. Let's try that again. High melting. There we go. Point. They will also form crystals. And they dissolve in water to form solutions that conduct electricity. And they are also solid at room temperature. So, ionic compounds, again, made up of one metal and one nonmetal element. So some everyday examples of ionic compounds are table salt. And we've looked at this example before. We're going to further explore it. So that's NaCl. So it's made of sodium, which is a very reactive element. So sodium is very reactive. And chlorine gas, which is a poisonous, and it's yellow-green. So, how in the world do we get something edible out of two non-edible elements? So, sodium itself and chlorine are not edible elements. Well, when they combine, they chemically combine, the sodium explodes into a bright orange flame and a white or coarse grain powder is produced. So they go through a chemical reaction and they chemically combine to form NaCl. So when NaCl is produced, these properties are very different than the elements themselves. So they don't table salt that we know of. We know table salt is not reactive. And we know it is not a poisonous or yellow or green, right? So as it goes through this chemical change, what happens is the properties completely change.